Hey everyone, RogueGold here, and today I want to deep dive into Tom Clancy's The Division 3, because after years of hoping, then another year or so of waiting once it was announced that Ubisoft and Massive Entertainment intended to develop the game, we can now officially say that The Division 3 is in active development. And for many people, longtime fans and casual enjoyers alike, that is quite exciting. Now, as somebody who keeps their finger on the pulse of the community and general online Division discussion, I've seen the uptick in Division 3 conversation lead to a lot of confusion and just general misinformation. None of it maliciously intended, but there's simply a lot of different beliefs about where the Division 3 is at in development and what we really know about it. So, in today's video, I'm setting out to set the record straight. I want to go over a complete timeline of the project and cover everything we know about the status of development in 2025, to hopefully get everybody a bit more aligned on their understanding of the game. Should be a good time. Again, this video is just going to cover factual and official information that we know. That said, if you're interested in seeing a bit more of a speculative discussion on the game, I just recently released a top 10 wishlist for features and content that I hope to see from the sequel. A lot of people went on to share their own ideas and lists in the comments of that video, so it was an awesome platform of ideas and discourse. If you're curious to check it out, the link will be in the upper corner of the screen and down in the description below. Lastly, before we get into this, if you enjoyed the video and you want to stay fully up to date on any new Division 3 information we learn in 2025 and beyond, then hopefully you'll consider clicking that subscribe button. As I said, I've got my pulse on the finger of it all, and you'll be the first to hear about anything that we learn. Without further ado, however, let's dive into the state of the Division 3 in 2025. To begin, we go back to the initial announcement of the Division 3's existence, September 21st, 2023. On this day, Ubisoft dropped an article containing some major news. The larger focus of this was to announce that Julian Garrity, previously Associate Creative Director on The Division 1 and Creative Director on The Division 2, would be returning to the franchise after the release of Star Wars Outlaws, for which he was also Creative Director, to now serve as the Executive Producer for the entire Division brand, focusing on cohesion of all franchise projects, and, as the article outlined, assembling a team to build The Division 3. A core focus of Garrity's is to build a team for Tom Clancy's The Division 3, which will be led by Massive Entertainment, while making sure that Tom Clancy's The Division 2 remains well supported. Outside of that, his attention will be on a solidification of brand identity. Now, the key word here is build. A narrative I saw ran with as soon as this news dropped back in 2023 was that since Ubisoft has now name-dropped The Division 3, that means that it has already been in development for quite some time. And in fairness, that is not an implausible assumption. The trend we saw take place with The Division 2's development was that they didn't confirm its existence until they were already well past the halfway point, likely 2/3 of the way or more through development. However, that is not what has happened this time. And what this initial article was confirming was that there were now solidified plans to make a Division 3, but that it was not happening yet. The unspoken roadblock for all of this was Star Wars Outlaws, a game also developed by Massive Entertainment, makers of The Division 1 and 2. That game's development team was led by Julian and was comprised primarily by the core team that made the Division games. In the article, it was stated that Julian remains fully committed to making Star Wars Outlaws a success for both the development team and fans. He will remain on the project through launch to ensure the game meets the intended creative vision and provide a great experience for players. So again, what was being set up here but not directly stated by Ubisoft was that The Division 3 was slated to be the next game worked on by this team at Massive, but that not much work, if any, would take place for it prior to Outlaws' release. And this is largely what we seem to have seen play out. Star Wars Outlaws was released on August 30th, 2024, and only since then have we begun to see further news and updates on the Division 3 project. This includes public job listings, for which there are still a few actively listed online as I'm making this video. These include 2 directorial roles, both for the narrative and animation disciplines, and that is another key indicator that the project is still in its early phases, as having your director roles filled for each major department is how you fully flesh out and begin functioning as a development team. It was also in these recent months since Outlaws' release that The Division 3 finally received an official page on Massive's website. Its heading reads, Tom Clancy's The Division 3, the next entry in the series. And while the page doesn't offer much information, here's what it does say. In 2023, it was announced that Massive Entertainment is leading the development of Tom Clancy's The Division 3. The project is led by Julian Garrity, who is the executive producer for the Division brand. While we cannot unveil any details about the third entry in the series at this time, we are actively recruiting for the project. Keep an eye on our job ads as we're continuously expanding the team. Stay tuned for more news on Tom Clancy's The Division 3. So that is the total timeline for the project up until until now in terms of key steps and announcements. Something else we can take a look at though is who we know is on the development team. The first, shockingly, is Julian Garrity. Again, his new and current role is executive producer for the entire Division brand. He's overseeing the assembly of the Division 3 team, likely holds a degree of input on the direction of the game, and will work to make its integration into the larger franchise a smooth one. One other confirmed developer and role is that of the game's tech director. The position is held by Nikolai Stefanov, and we know of his involvement thanks to Massive releasing an article spotlighting Nikolai's history and impact at the studio. Notably, he served as 3C and animation lead on the Division 1. For any who don't know, 3C stands for character, camera, and controls. So to lead those elements and animations, if you were a fan of how the Division 1 felt to play, a lot of that can likely be traced back to Nikolai's contributions. The article also detailed how one of his first involvements with the Division franchise was how he was brought on to work on the Division 1's original reveal demo for E3 2013. The team at the time wanted to make the visuals of the demo pop as much as possible, and Nikolai helped achieve that. I'd argue that his efforts were certainly successful, as the graphical fidelity of the demo all those years ago is what got so many hooked on the idea of the Division to begin with. We know that the limitations of console technology at the time is largely what held the game back from achieving that original proposed vision, and so to know that Nikolai is now in charge of the technical side of the Division 3 with all of the innovations and technological achievements that have been made in the days since that demo, I think that's quite exciting. Those are the only two confirmed developer roles on the Division 3. I've scoured LinkedIn and any other sources online for any tidbits I could find. It seems as though things are pretty airtight for now. There are certainly some inferences that can be made. For instance, Matthias Carlson, who served as game director alongside Julian on the Division 2 and Star Wars Outlaws. He is now listed as a creative director at Massive as of last month, December 2024. I think that is likely to fill Julian's absence since he is now the overall franchise's executive producer. And there are many other longtime Division developer veterans who have listed new positions and roles as of November and December. Clearly, the team is largely in place and hard at work, but it'll be a bit of time before they're given the green light to confirm those details. Next, I wanted to cover what details are known about the game itself. Now, spoiler alert, the answer is not very many. However, there are some key bits that can be taken away from sources like job listings that likely align pretty closely with what we will see in the final product once the game does release. Now, the first thing I wanted to note is that anybody claiming online that there is info out there regarding what the Division 3 setting, story, or gameplay might be, that is simply false. At this time, none such information has been released. One common misconception I see is people thinking that the previously announced and unfortunately now cancelled Division Heartland game was or is going to be the Division 3. This is untrue. That game was set to take place in a middle American small town called Silver Creek, and so I've come across many saying, oh yeah, the Division 3 is going to be in a suburban location. The Division Heartland and the Division 3 were and are two completely separate projects and ideas, and I can assure you with pretty good confidence that likely very little, if any, of what was the Division Heartland will be used or make its way into the Division 3. Beyond all of that, however, what do we know about the game? Well, as mentioned, we might have a few clues thanks to one very revealing job listing that went up in the recent weeks, and that was for a senior AI designer. Amongst the job description and qualifications, the following things were slated and implied. Firstly, the game will run on the Snowdrop engine. This is Massive's proprietary and in-house game engine that was originally built for the Division 1 exclusively back in the early 2010s. It's what the Division 1 and 2 both ran on, and it has since gone on to become Ubisoft's favorite engine across their worldwide portfolio. This detail that the Division 3 will be using Snowdrop was also essentially confirmed in the aforementioned article spotlighting Nikolai Stefanov, as it was explained that alongside tech director for the Division 3, he has also stepped into the role of chief architect of the Snowdrop engine. So, two very synergistic roles there. Next, no huge shocker, but the listing does seem to suggest that like its predecessors, the Division 3 will be a third-person shooter. It suggests that the enemy factions we will be fighting will remain of a humanoid nature, meaning that those who have held concerns of the Division leading too far into the sci-fi realm should be put at ease a bit, and the job listing states that some nice-to-have qualities are experience working on both open-world and online games. So, all in all, those details aren't groundbreaking, right? They pretty much sound exactly like the Division 1 and 2. But I think that in and of itself is important, because there had been a lot of curiosity and speculation that the team at Massive might try to do something different with this third game, right? Make it more narrative focused or less tied to that of an online looter-shooter DNA. Personally, I love the Division games for their MMO roots and looter-shooter natures, so to see this job listing hint at that still being the case is exciting. That said, I do want to stress that just because something is in a job listing, that does not confirm that that is what the project in question will contain. However, in most cases, you're hiring someone with relevant qualifications and experience because you want them to apply those skills to a project containing those elements. So I'll let you all do the math there, but to be on the safe side, as always, take these things with a grain of salt. Alright, we've covered the project's timeline up until now. We went over who we know is working on the game and what details we can glean about the game itself. That leads us to one final big question of when we can expect the Division 3 to release. Obviously, as of right now, there is no official information on a release date. Anything people may be saying here online is speculation. So all I can offer you is my best educated guess. And to come up with that guess, I'm factoring in a few key points. Firstly, like we covered, even though the game was announced back in 2023, it has only really gone into development within the past 2 to 3 months. Also, we looked at how they're still hiring for director roles, another sign of early development. Then we can look at how from inception to release, it took this same studio and team 3 years to pump out the Division 2. It was reported after release that that was somewhat of a rushed development cycle put under pressure by Ubisoft to hit a 3-year release window from the original game. And on top of that, AAA game development cycles have only increased in average length since those days. And then finally, you can look at how this team's most recent project, Star Wars Outlaws, took just about 4.5 years to release once they began conceptualizing and pre-producing it in late 2019, early 2020. With all of those factors in mind, it is my firm belief that we will not see the Division 3 release anytime before 2028. That would give them 3 full years from when I'm making this video right now at the start of January. Add in that last bit of 2024 and a few months worth of 2028, and I think that's about when we are likely going to see this thing ship. Obviously, the Division 3 is not an all-new IP, so there is less groundwork to do there for establishing lore and all those things, and given it's a sequel in the same engine, likely utilizing the same game structure and style, there are of course certain elements that they can use from the previous games to speed up development. That said, this is still a major AAA game that they're making, and as much as I would love to not have to wait 3 years to see this thing, not only do I feel like that is most realistically what we're looking at, but I also think that is an appropriate amount of time to give them. Given we waited so long just for them to decide to make this game, I think it would be a shame for them just to rush it out and potentially repeat some of the same mistakes of its predecessors just for the sake of not taking a long time. I'm happy to let the team at Massive cook, and even though we are likely in for a long period of silence and waiting, let's hope it'll be worth it. Folks, with that, that is everything we know on Tom Clancy's The Division 3 in 2025. I very much hope you all enjoyed this breakdown. I know there are constant questions coming in about what's happening with the game, where is it, when can I play it? Hopefully this helps answer most if not all of your questions. If there is anything you're still wondering about, feel free to leave a comment about it down below and I will do my very best to clear things up. But yeah, I think that is about going to do it for me today, everybody. Stay tuned right here for any potential Division 3 news we might hear moving forward, and I will see you all in the next one. Until then, RogueGold. Out.